Well, hello there. Welcome to yet another episode of the Merge Roundtable. I'm here this week with Jim Durbin and Josh Stramiello, and we're going to talk about a lot of interesting things. I am sure I don't know every topic is going to come up because we ran out of time during the countdown to inventory those things, but I do know we're going to talk a little bit about Reddit and the incompetence of managers, and then whatever you think of.
Okay. I'm sure I'll have some ideas.
All right. Okay, so I know you have. Have you been following this like Reddit drama that's going on this week?
I'm a big Redditor.
Big Redditor.
Yeah.
So
r/yes.
r/ yes. So for those who may not, it's like literally 4 screenfuls of journalist commentary on Tech Meme today. So there's a lot of chatter going on about it today. But if you haven't been following the news, there has been a user revolt of sorts against user revolt of sorts going on against the closing down or the restricting of the API. There's been some pricing changes of the API, much the same way that Elon changed the pricing of the API for Twitter, and there has been some revolts because of the way that Reddit works, because there's a lot more user control, the ability for there to be. Hello, Caitlin. How you doing? You're good.
Sorry.
You're all good.
It's all background.
If you want to jump in, we're talking about Reddit. So yeah. Anyway. So that's kind of like the short version of what's happening. You have some thoughts, I know. You mentioned you actually think it's a good idea for the CEO to crack down on the ways that he's been talking about cracking down on the users.
Well, I giggled at the word landed gentry
Yes.
in description of the moderators.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's a losing battle here for those of us who read it or online in general. The moderators are insufferable in general. They do a lot of free work, but they're just like every other group of people online. They start thinking they're big and bad because they're moderating. We've got the power. So what's bad? A company that's full of nonsense tech bros gets yelled at for a bit, or the moderators lose? Either way, either they'll do well. Sometimes I don't think they're any losers. I like it when these guys fight because then they're not coming after somebody else or pitching it. It's good when they fight. We don't have to listen to the other nonsense they're coming up with.
Right. You have some thoughts.
Yeah, I think the moderators are the product. Like, they're a big part of the product. There's a big difference between heavily moderated communities, which is basically what Reddit requires to thrive, the way that it's set up. You know, the big example that I'll give is OnlyFans. So I worked a little bit in that category, or consulted adjacent to that category. And there are so many subreddits where if they can wiggle an OnlyFans promo in there, they will, and it becomes spammy. But you're thinking, okay, if it's like a porn or a not safe for work subreddit, that's fine. No one really cares. And it's true. But then you have like people going on like dating subreddits or like rate my looks subreddits. And instead of a genuine post, it's basically a promo for porn. And so just one thing off the top of the head that I know will happen without moderation is 4 out of 5, 7 out of 10 posts suddenly become promotional and advertising. Not just for porn, but like
Companies,
people
yeah.
will be posting ads for their health products, athletic greens, their MLM scams. So like that's the heaviest thing. And if you've done any moderation work, I don't know if you have or not, on Reddit, but specifically on Reddit, most of it is promotional material. Most of the strikes you're doing are not inappropriate, or like this person made like a joke that I won't say because I'm assuming we're on YouTube, but that's not actually, like, censorship is not most of it. It's the removal of spam and ads. And the moderators have been doing this, a lot of it third-party assisted tools and bots, and their ability to moderate is now being stopped by Reddit's new pricing strategies.
Answer.
Yeah.
Do you remember Snakes on a Plane?
I do.
Do you remember how it got successful?
Hype.
It was like
Moderated columns. The average person moderating, it turns out the entire thing was funded by a think tank out of DC, as we talked about in the old days. So the idea that moderators are these doing good, a lot of them are paid. They're there for a reason. And when they fight, the problem is they're like, it's what we just found out the other day, that people who pick on people online, it's not about goodness. It literally is a form of sadism. Mm-hmm. You see that story that came out about it? I lean on that side. I haven't really found, I know that there are moderators out there that are doing the good work, and it's important, and Reddit has to think through those. I don't like them as a class of people. I admit it. And it's not like, I think Reddit's gone downhill since
Probably
they
not a
clamped
fan
down
of
on it.
Wikipedia editors, then, are you?
I was years ago. There's some decent history stuff.
Yeah.
But over time, you're like, it's silly. When you get into the fights and see them, you're like, okay, these aren't good people.
It's crazy to me that you keep focusing on the moderators and not the people that they have to moderate. Like that, you have a horde of orcs that are held at bay by that. So like, yeah, okay, let's say a moderator is a neckbeard. Let's say they are biased. Let's say they take their job too seriously or they're self-important. Okay, that's way better than someone that thinks, I don't even know how to say this on YouTube, but like, you know,
there's horrible
Child
stuff
Protective Services jokes are funny and spam stuff like that. And those people are out there. Like they go to hard R's, both racially and, you know, SA.
Trolls have been online for a long time.
Yeah.
When a company gets as big as Reddit is now, it's no longer the front page of the internet. And it used to be these fun, interesting places before Internal September, and now it's just, I mean, how do you believe anything written on there?
Did you
Reddit started to move into professional circles, and maybe that's why I'm starting to get annoyed by it, because I hear people go, oh my God, did you read this study on anti-work? I'm like, that's probably a 13-year-old or made up, and why would you be taught? Like, they think it's news.
Yeah.
So the idea of them having some issues and being forced into something else or splitting apart, I'm okay with.
Yeah.
I'm not cheering on Reddit, although I know I look like a gentleman farmer, so of course I'd support the landed gentry. But the point, I'm okay with what Reddit's doing with the APIs, because ultimately this is to stop the AI bots that are in place.
Yeah, I was just going to bring up LLMs. That's actually
that's the biggest issue.
I tipped my theoretical cowboy hat to you, sir. That was literally the next point I was going to bring up. Yeah, I mean, there've been a lot of name calling and disparaging of Elon recently. It's a popular thing to jump on that hype train. And when you look at Twitter's valuation right now, it's primarily based off of perception of the stock price and Twitter's traditional paths to revenue, which traditionally has been advertising. But I think Cuban brought this up initially, or that was the first time I had the thought reading his comment, which was, what is Twitter? Well, yeah, it's all the things that we already know it is, but it's also possibly one of the best training data sources. And Elon now controls that faucet. So when you think about how much money is going to be poured into AI services companies,
right.
And then I see this move not really being about trying to eat, because a lot of people are like, oh, they're trying to squeeze out third parties so they can increase their access for advertisers. I actually think that a lot of this is going, wow, we need to actually protect our data. We need to make it cost prohibitive so that people can't train competitors off of us, because I use data from Reddit in every aspect of my work. Like, it's real. Like
they really should have thought about this before they tried to make their users the product and make data a free thing to attract them in so they could sell advertising against it. Like, I have no sympathy for a company like, because Stack Overflow's in the same boat. They're saying the same thing. Twitter, Reddit, all these sites that have made Quora have made their money off of turning users into a product with no sort of the integrity of the data itself is an afterthought, and now they're upset that these spiders are crawling just because they're the wrong kind of spider, wrong kind of little bot. You know, like, they were okay with it when it was Baidu and Google and Bing.
Right.
Now it's OpenAI.
I mean, how many of your searches go to Reddit?
Yeah.
Or Quora?
That's exactly where
crazy the number that do. Yeah.
If you look at the Google traffic data for like a question, it's the question and then the word Reddit is like usually a top 5 query. So like if the question is like, you know, what's better, PlayStation or Xbox? And then you pull the search terms around that, like the number 3 or number 5 answer will be, what's better?
Winking green light, don't know what it is, Xbox One.
Yeah, right. Reddit.
It turns, because those are the ones the people put their time into those.
Yeah, because they know, and this is a good point as well when we talk about AI, right? And the threat that it is to Google. People have habitualized over the last 10 plus years. They get their information from Google. But then, I don't know, I'm just pulling a number out of my butt. $1 trillion industry was created around SEO and page rank and making sure. Yeah, I mean, I don't know the exact value. It's kind of hard to calculate. But trillions of dollars, billions of dollars, definitely billions, probably trillions.
It's probably trillions, yeah.
Probably trillions.
It's reached it.
And because of that, we as the consumers have learned more and more, like, who clicks on the first link on Google? Everyone knows the first like 3 or 4 links are going to be promoted. So you scroll down and you're like, which one of these is actually trying to give me the answer? And the reason why so many people put Reddit in that search term on Google, it's like, I Google Reddit. I Googled to get to Reddit, because I know those humans are going to have an honest conversation. They're not trying to sell me something. There's going to be 400 comments, 800 comments, and suddenly it's 800 people that actually use this product. They've actually had an Xbox and a PlayStation. They've actually had a job at Ernst & Young. They've actually had, so like, what do I want to read? A blog post written by a recruiter? I'm kind of targeting you right now.
Sure. I get it.
What do I want to read? A blog post written by a recruiter promoting or attacking Ernst & Young?
Or something
do I
written
want
by
to read
a 13-year-old who pretends to be a vice president of Ernst & Young. I mean,
there's a part of that, but I'll say there's one thing. If there's a single platform that I think is Sherlock Holmes, it's Reddit. You can't lie on Reddit, and get away with it. I'm telling you, they're the hive mind. They go through your history. They look at your syntax. There's experts on everything. I think the hardest platform to lie on is Reddit.
I went there because the comments were funnier than the basic stuff. So speaking of SEO and the sponsoring stuff, gives a little sense of user behavior. Indeed's an $8 billion company. They started off with pay-per-click. They used to scrape all the other sites. So all Monster and Career Builder, they would scrape them to feed, and they were an aggregator. Then they started posting all those jobs using a better version of Google schema than Career Builder and Monster would use because they didn't want them. The next thing you know, they start selling pay-per-click. They start growing. One of the things that people would often not get is when you're in Indeed couldn't figure out where people went to the third and fourth page. And what it was is they didn't want to look at the sponsored jobs because they figured that was the dirty company that had the bad jobs that had to pay for them. So they would go to the third and fourth page. I figured this out a long time ago. So I'd write bad titles I wanted on the third. I don't want to fight to the top of it. So the Google was all about the first page. Get to the first page of Google and you'll make money. Trying to get to the third page of Indeed was how you did it correctly for years. What does that tell you about user behavior? They don't trust the front.
Yeah.
Indeed actually took the word sponsored off those top ones so that you no longer are aware what's sponsored and what's organic.
Seems like an FTC violation.
Mm.
Clear and conspicuous disclosure is the actual FTC language.
Feels
I don't know.
like
You're
it.
a lawyer. You could.
I
tell.
am a lawyer, but I don't want to be for the purposes of this conversation. I'm only a lawyer when I know the answer. When someone says something wrong and it's like, actually, sir, I'm an attorney. Otherwise, it's like, I'm not your lawyer.
Thank God I'm not an HR podcast or they'd get 15 calls right now.
Yeah. But yeah, clear and conspicuous disclosure is the social media podcasting and blogging standard.
Well,
I can say I am
Yeah.
aware of multiple influencers and advertisers that have gotten in trouble for not denoting what is a paid advertisement.
I can think of one
that
more I'd
makes a lot
like you
of
to get in
sense
trouble.
me.
Is there a hotline for that?
Yeah.
Can you think of
Yeah, there is. Yeah. That's why Kardashian just had to pay like $1 million for promoting like some
Only $1
Dogecoin
million?
variant. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's going to be really interesting because it hasn't come down yet, but all of these YouTubers and influencers that were promoting ICOs and crypto, basically rug pulls.
Yeah.
Well,
That hammer hasn't really come down yet, but like there's some pretty big names.
Damon, Brady.
There's
Matt Damon,
there's a
Tom
bunch
Brady.
of guys that are now being told by the SEC and the DOJ that they've got to pay back the money FTX gave them.
Yeah, but to me that's not even the hammer coming down. And also, I guess I don't think of FTX as a rug pull. I think of that as more like
Just outright fraud.
just outright fraud and C-suite deceit. I think at different points they intended to actually build something, right? Like that doesn't mean that they didn't change course. Like
It was just a compulsive gambler, in my opinion.
yeah. I think that he was Sam Bankman-Fried was by the way, I should post that video. It's really funny of me impersonating Sam Bankman-Fried.
I bet you do a good job.
I'm gonna upload it. I did a whole comedy act as SBF, so I really got in character. I watched a bunch of videos.
How did he get SBF? That's so bizarre to me.
Sam Bankman-Fried?
Yeah,
Because
but that
people
became
hate
the thing.
talking.
That,
I mean, it's simple. It's like
his name's Sam Bankman,
Yeah.
and his last name's Fried.
Well, his parents have the dual hyphen last name thing.
No, but yeah, nobody saw anything wrong with a guy in crypto with the last name Bankman. Like it should have been a red
there's
flag.
something else that came out today.
More like
Completely
Ponzi
take
Man.
us off.
It's lazy.
There's a bunch of sociological studies that say that if your name sounds like certain things or your letters, you tend to like it. So
Yeah.
my last name's Durbin. I live in Dallas. I feel more comfortable in Dallas
Turbin.
than in San Antonio, right?
Bourbon.
If your name is Dennis, you're more likely to be a dentist.
Right. Okay.
Well, they couldn't replicate that. They're like, it turns out it's just one of these other studies that Kahneman and everybody else did that didn't work. But then they started taking AI through it and tracking it. And it turns out that not only is there some truth to that, the place you live, the people you date, where you like to eat, the cities you live in, are not only closer to your names, but women were not like that. And then over the last 50 or 60 years, as they've gone into the workforce, they are more like that. So that's an interesting. We'll wonder if AI begins to change some of those sociological thoughts in your head. And apparently, if you're named Bankman, you're almost certainly going to be something of fraud. It's why wouldn't somebody? I knew a guy named Keith Fear. Captain Fear. He was a hot air balloon pilot.
Huh.
So you're not always having to do what it is.
Interesting.
How do people pick these? I
Yeah.
can't think of what I'm supposed to be. Because I don't know what I am. Isn't your last name Sawyer or something like that?
Stramiello.
Is it rhyme with Esquire in Italian?
Stramiello rhymes with I love Jello, so maybe
Mellow
that's
yellow.
why I love Bill Cosby's work so much.
Wow.
I was going to say with,
That's the reason.
with a name like Dr. Bitcoin, I guess it was pretty prescribed what I was going to get into. So I mean,
Starbucks, apparently.
yeah, yeah. So back to Reddit just briefly before we go on to the next thing. So what I think, well, what's interesting is what's happening right this week is he is scouring all these Reddits for like people in the subreddits that are willing to take over the job as moderator, and they're going to kick out the existing moderators.
No, it won't work. I think they're gonna have to compromise. I think the mods, they're gonna have to have. This is the cost to access the APIs for a third-party company, and then here's access for moderators for a community of a certain size that's like passed through at cost.
They have ads up talking about that already.
Yeah.
But they're waiving it for moderators. But it'll be some kind of compromise. You can't just give it. What person would, the kind of person that would jump at that, knowing that the last batch was just, that's like French Revolution
It's
stuff.
real easy to have. I mean, like, look.
That's like a side piece who thinks they're going to get married.
As a guy who's been in, I'm just gonna, as a guy who's been in social media and has written software, it's not a terrible, difficult lift to say, okay, here's an API for user access and here's an API for the general public. You have two classes of API keys. It's like, this is not a science project. I don't understand what the problem is. Like, this is really bizarre.
Can we bridge the gap real quick? Because we went swinging at moderation, and everything I've heard is that the third-party apps are easier to use and more, clean than the Reddit app. And I don't think I see the link now. I think we're talking about how the Reddit app, ads and moderation. Where's the link there?
So the link is, I tried to recap it at the beginning. The link is that there was a decision with regard to the API costs. It created issues with a bunch of popular applications used by moderators and by users to access Reddit.
One of them shut down, right? Apollo said we can't stick around if you take this away from us.
Several of them shut down, yeah. And some of these are essential for moderating large-scale Reddits, and some of them just cripple the site from a user perspective, because most people were using these most power users, I should say, were using this as the way to access the site. And so as a response to these apps saying, hey, we're going to have to shut down because we can't afford to deliver service anymore, that's what's causing the moderator revolt. They were turning their subreddits black, literally turning off access to the public and setting it to like a template that showed a black screen. And
Got you. I did see that list of all the ones boycotting.
it was like 9,500 subreddits at one point. It's
There's
down to
like
70% of the traffic.
I'll tell you this.
Funny Reddit subreddit names.
I'll tell you
I don't know
this.
if they're all porn, but it sounds like it.
I'll tell you this, and I'm coming in hot and angry. R/NBA did this protest during the last game of the NBA Finals. So, like, as someone who's a borderline basketball addict that already spends a lot of time on Reddit, if I had $1 for every time I like subconsciously was like, oh, I want to see what the boys are talking about, and I clicked on, it's the first one in my suggestions, and every time it took me to that, this page is private.
He was forced to watch the game.
No,
Mark.
I found sub communities, which is, let's talk
He was
about that.
Forced to sit and watch the game without interruptions.
Let's talk about Jurassic Park and Life Finds a Way, right? So what happened was r/NBA, which I don't have it memorized on the top of my head, but it's a crazy number. It's probably like 6 million, 8 million people on it. And when they did the ban, other smaller subreddits like NBA Talk, NBA Discussion, NBA Memes, they did not do the ban. And I'm not tracking this exactly, but there's tools where we could pull it up. Like NBA Talk doubled.
That becomes an interesting one.
It goes
One
200
dies that another may live.
It
right?
goes 200,000 to
Lightning
400.
crashes.
It goes 200,000 to 400,000.
I'm surprised there wasn't more of that, because it seems an ideal time. Like, you'll see some of those where a column of some kind, community splits. It's a perfect time to jump in.
Yeah.
And once that fever's broken, why do you keep going back? Because that's the whole thing. It's a habit.
Yes.
Oh,
and
I
the
have
danger,
to keep popping looking for those. Once you stop that, will Reddit ever regain that traffic?
that's the thing, right? So
Do you go
let's
to
say
Twitter now?
let's say
God forbid you go
TikTok.
to LinkedIn.
Let's say TikTok gets like banned for whatever reason for like 30 days.
Right.
Well, they're not just losing 30 days of revenue. When you look at how sticky they need to be for like a Gen Z audience,
Right.
that's like 4 to 6 hours a day someone was spending on TikTok. Now, even though Instagram Reels is an inferior experience, they migrate over there. They spend 30 days of that 4 to 6 hours. A certain percentage of them will not migrate back to TikTok, or they'll have to be reacquired. So I think that Reddit, there isn't really a Reddit competitor that's viable. And I'll say one more thing, because
But there is something, I think it's called Tilly or something like that. It's an open source alternative that a lot of these are moving to.
the problem, why I would disagree, and why I said viable, right? This Reddit is not a technology issue. The technology is not incredibly complicated. Like,
Right.
it's forum technology. Like, the larger aspects of Reddit haven't really changed over the last 5 or 7 years that I've been using it heavily. You could anticipate, well, this is not more complicated than like the original Facebook app, right? Like that, I'm not talking about like Meta. I'm talking about like the original Facebook app.
Yep.
So when you look at what the value in Reddit is, it's not the technology and it's not the size of the user base, it's the data. And the data is like, this is what shocks me. And for people who like look down on Reddit or Jim, who don't really understand it, this is the thing that you're missing, right? So I will never understand what it's like to have Asperger's.
Okay.
But I can go on Reddit and there's a community with like 30,000 people that have it, talking to each other about stuff I couldn't get exposed to it if I tried. But they're going, oh, when we do this, it's hard. Oh, this is really easy for us. And then hundreds of other people with that specific thing. And you're going, okay, well, that's weird. Why do you want to learn about people with Asperger? Because I want
Quora,
to.
I want answers, GeoCities.
Well, I mean,
Nowhere
former
close.
blogs,
Quora's level.
IRCs.
No, not even close.
Usenet. Usenet. I mean,
That's
like
exactly
it
what
might
they were.
surprise you to learn this, but like before Reddit and Quora and all
And
these
the
other
before
sites,
times.
Usenet was like the dominant forum technology, and
Yes.
it was all basically like that. It was, you just typed in. It wasn't even a browser. It was just
There weren't 30,000 of them, though. There was like one guy.
Oh no, it was.
The
I know,
quality,
I mean,
the length of the posts, the amount of research people have done.
If you're looking for somewhere to go to understand autism spectrum, I'd say there's Twitter, there's
Facebook, Snapchat, any local bar or liberal arts college.
No, but you. Okay. So maybe not so.
Was that me?
That was no, but Usenet. Well, yeah. Speaking of autism, Usenet
Does that mean we're just cutting the segment? What does that mean?
just means the Usenet is was, I would say, hundreds of thousands of sub forums, and it largely was supplanted by web-based forum technology when Google bought the largest archive of Usenet, and it became like part of Google Answers and Yahoo Answers, and then Quora. It was the sublimation of technology tree that happened after that was Usenet, Google Answers, Yahoo Answers. Then Dig started doing things better, and then Reddit was doing things better than Dig. But you can do all the same stuff that you're talking about in terms of moderation and forum assembly under one roof.
But you can't do
with
it.
Usenet.
You can't do it in a day or a year.
Absolutely, you can.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Absolutely, you
It was
can.
it was a higher.
Because
you didn't have the masses.
The only thing that's different between Usenet and Reddit is searchability on Google.
Yeah, but there's millions and millions of comments and posts, and there've been micro communities, and they have histories. There's histories. These communities
So,
have
so does
created.
Usenet.
before you get into that, Lemmy has a scraping tool
Yeah.
that allows you to take your entire history and move it over to a domain that you own, where you don't have to worry about whether or not you're going to have data that's siloed. You bring it over, and then once Google understands that this is where the active community is, it stops indexing the old one, finds a new one.
But didn't you just make the argument for exactly why Reddit's doing what they're doing? That the data is their most valuable asset, and if that history and those context of those comments and the language of those communities can be imported over to another tool, then they don't have a moat. So
the ship has sailed.
They're getting
The ship has sailed because it's an open and available community.
Well, but now that's going to be cost prohibitive if people are training new models on it. I mean, I get that maybe people have already trained a certain amount of models off of it, but as I understand it, they're going to need access to be able to continue doing that. That's why the price hike happened.
Sure.
Yeah.
But the Reddit's response
Yeah.
is forcing people to flee the sinking ship. And all this stuff will move to other places. Whether it's another centralized website or it's a bunch of open source alternatives remains to be seen.
There are competitors. There will be competitors. Are those competitors able to reach what I would call an MVP of what Reddit is? And I don't think that's something that can be done in a matter of days or months. I think that would take years.
Well, it takes
And,
this
is the beauty of why you're wrong, because nobody is loyal to this knucklehead.
Put technical difficulties back up.
Nobody's loyal to this knucklehead Steve Huffman and the Reddit
to
brand.
be clear, I like the fact that he said landed gentry because it made him look like an ass. I wasn't supporting him as a fellow landowner. I was just making fun of the fact that he thought that was a word that anybody would even use.
You look.
What?
So
Sorry, I heard land ownership.
We're getting overproduced here.
yeah, well. So, but like the nobody's loyal to the Reddit brand, as we can
Right.
see. They're willing to cut off their nose to spite their face when it comes to their own communities by going dark until this problem is solved. Everybody hates Steve Huffman, so no one's going to stick around because of this guy.
Right.
If you can scrape your entire Reddit's data and then let your entire community know that, hey, the community's moved over here, well, who do you think the users are going to follow?
That's the thing, right? Okay, so that's the thing you just said. Reddit is not an app to me and to a lot of people. It is access to my people in a community.
Sure.
Because there are some subreddits where it's literally a community. It's literally our people.
Yep.
So you have to be able to migrate the herd.
Yeah.
I think it's difficult.
It's hard to move because it's not just, it's all three of them.
How are you going
Here's
to
the historical
how are you going to
stuff.
trap them?
Here's the extra.
Yeah.
What are the mechanisms to trapping the users on Reddit?
Funny
Yeah, but
comments,
you're
good
No,
stories.
that you can do that. You can move those over. That's not a mechanism for trapping them. That's why they were there in the first
Internal
place.
language. It's the
and these
same.
okay, not
But
every community is going to be the same. There's going to be like whatever the free speech community is would probably be the first one to move. I'm sure like r/libertarian would be the first one to move. Like there's going to be things where people care more about this, and then there's things where people care about talking about basketball, and they want to be able to search like all the game history, and they want
So
to.
if you Google r/NBA space whatever your topic is, and
Yeah.
it takes you to a website that is not Reddit, and it's all the same people that you listen to and look for their comments before, are you going to go there? Or are you going to go, no, I'm not going to read this because it's not Reddit?
They'll have different usernames.
It
There'll
would
be
de-
fights over usernames.
It would depend on the size of the community and the quality of the post. So, and it also depend on what type of community I was looking for.
So if it's got all the r/NBA content on it, it's run by the same moderators. Most of the same people are still posting there. What are you going to do? You going to go back to Reddit? You're going to go to there?
I think it's unfair to ask me because I'm not a normal Reddit user. I have multiple accounts and I have like ghost personas and I'm on it for a lot of different reasons. A lot of them are like growth hacky and work related. So I'm not an organic Reddit user. Like if I'm doing a digital marketing project, I'm trying to think of something that won't dox myself. Let's say gay dating. Let's say a gay dating app hires me. I've never done this, so I feel safe talking about this.
Okay.
And the gay
Never dated.
the gay date never dated a gay man. Yeah.
He's
But-
a lawyer. He's very specific in his language.
Yeah.
Let's say a gay dating app hires me and they're like, hey, we want to do ABC. Well, as someone who has not been in the gay dating community, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go find all the LGBT communities. I'm going to learn the inside
Right.
words, the memes, the communication. I'm going to make a fake account. I'm going to pretend to be, me, but 4% gayer, and that qualifies. And then, I'm going to learn everything and then bring that back to the marketing program that I'm using, where I don't come off as an outsider. I come off as an insider. So
what he's looking for is something real on the internet.
I'm looking for real people that are talking to other people that share the same characteristics. I'm looking for the fringes of society being thrust out in the open. I mean, you just can't. There's a community called r/meth,
That's a
not
fascinating one.
math with an A, with an E, math with an E. Okay, and it is one of the craziest things I have ever seen. Can't recommend it enough. I guarantee you, they are not following this protest. They're open. It is not a subreddit for people. When you hear that, what do you think that is? What do you think the community is of
I think it's a
r/meth?
number of users who are sharing crazy stories.
What do you think that is?
Yeah, it sounds like a trip reports for meth people.
Yeah, it's not a community of people talking about how they're getting off of meth. It's not a support. It's not AA. It's a community of people talking about their lives with meth, how it makes their life better. And I think it was like 80 or 90,000 subscribers. And what is even more crazy is very few people that browse and use that community are going to subscribe to it because they don't want to dox themselves. So like, I guarantee you the views and the likes and the engagement on that is way higher as a ratio. But
It's ironic, isn't it?
where am I going to go find 80,000 people talking openly about
There's not
using
an
meth?
r/Reddit.
No, it's r/edit.
No. The point is that Reddit itself is kind of like meth.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
the whole point and how it's set up. That's what
I
a lot
see.
of this is. So it's not bad
Yeah.
when things go bad.
But I'm
Community is hard to build. It's not easy.
But for those meth heads, that's a once in a lifetime thing to be able to see the experiences of other meth heads and talk to 80,000 of them and to see it normalize. It's just not, and there's so many communities like that. I mean, I use the Asperger example. I use the meth example. There's fringe politics, right?
Yeah.
Gay Republicans, pretty hard to find each other.
No,
I'm
you just
pretty
gotta
sure-
go to DC.
I'm pretty sure they're,
It's an open secret. So why should we pretend? Listen, 30% of the folks in DC is what I've heard. Literally. Everybody who's got a congressman talking about something that some law is almost assuredly the case. But that's the whole thing, right? You would only find that on Reddit. I don't believe anything I read on the internet anymore. But that's because I got burned long enough to eventually okay. This time I know it's not real. Why would you believe any of it? It's also just a single viewpoint, right? I mean, that's part of the issue is it's not really all this focused on stuff online. I think it's all going to disappear with the AI bots because they're going to get better and better at writing it. And then all the human content's going to be flooded out. And eventually they're going to realize there's no point in having humans. This is one of the
let's
pitches
talk
for
about that.
digital advertising.
Yeah.
Here's the question. Humans don't like clicking on ads. Why would you think if they're programmatic that more humans would like clicking on ads? If all of a sudden you have massive numbers of impressions and clicks, what makes you think those are real people clicking on your ad versus just flat out fraud?
I want to talk about something that it links back to Reddit, but I'm getting us off of the topic. I'm in some subreddits like marketers, freelance marketers, copywriters, digital nomads, remote work. Like these are all
Right.
things that populate, right? And I can tell you 3 months ago, I probably saw the first post about I lost my job to a specific AI tool. And now there's like 5 to 10
Yeah.
in my feed a day.
It's a huge
day.
problem.
And people are in the comment section talking about it. So like I gave a whole presentation to a client and the title of it was called Scared and Excited. And I was trying to tell the client, it's a great client, great, they have a lot of money, they're in a good position, they have a moat from traditional business. And I was like, hey, I sometimes can be a hype beast, but I feel like I've calmed down a lot. Like I'm much more sedated versus the earlier version of me. I'm like, in the presentation, I'm like, 30% unemployment is not impossible here as like a nationwide number. And I was like, there's not really a number. Like I'm an attorney. I think 4 out of 10, 4 out of 8 lawyers gone. Like the work is gone. Maybe they still find a way to use their law degree, but researching, drafting, editing, LLMs do this very well already. And it's today. And they're going to do it even crazy better
Done
in a
on
year.
a good set with good stuff written that was pre-checked, they'll outperform every lawyer, pretty much.
It already does.
Well, you have the problem of them having the issue of making things up,
No, it's not a problem. So you
Well,
can
it's
you
a
can use an open source LLM.
right?
And you can train it on specific data, and you can make it use a closed data set. Like you
Right.
can literally train it on just the case law in Texas. I mean, I'm doing
Yeah,
what
I know.
I'm literally doing this. What I'm describing, and that's all kinds of nuts. Like that, it already performs better. So what does that mean? It means that if you're actually, I don't want to talk about lawyers. I don't want to get in the weeds on that, but
There's
people
a question.
don't realize they've already lost.
Copywriters, designers, your work with Midjourney. The problem is that everybody gets excited about it. Who is reading the shit that's put out? Even if it's good, there's a point where people stop reading. You lose human attention because it's all the same. Who cares about pop music anymore?
That's not necessarily true.
Yeah,
I mean,
couldn't
because if that
disagree.
was necessarily true, then we've already crossed that Rubicon.
Well, that's the
like
idea of
5 or
the
6 years
dead
ago.
internet, that AI has taken over from all those. It hasn't been good enough to make it worth watching all of it.
Well, I mean, so if you look at specifically in journalism, like you're talking about legal profession, because that's where you're intimately familiar. Journalism for me, it's like the launch of like the Mashable TechCrunch era of blogs, where every blog that was launched had to have 37 posts a day
Right.
for their vertical, and it was mostly like,
Well, that's because they put money behind it, though.
what do you think? I mean,
That's what killed all that. It
Well-
used to be, when we started, it was about being authentic.
Sure, but the search engines are what drive all the revenue because it's ad-based revenue models, and so to do that, you have to be recent
Yep.
and full of information that a search engine bot can digest, and so that meant 37 posts a day per blog per vertical.
Which wiped out a lot of good voices that were calmer and more humble. And eventually you reach a point where what? Everybody's able to generate so much content. Who's going to read that? Most of the internet right now is unread.
It's the wrong way to look at it. It's not, the power of these tools is not that the tools can generate content on their own. It's content assistance. So like
That is a bullshit thing that
it's not-
people
I'm
say so
liter-
they don't
I've
freak people out.
literally done
You're
it
not going to
today.
lose your job. You're going to lose your job to somebody with AI. Dude, once we know that advertising's not going to humans, which is where we are in the B2B world, the amount of fraud and B2B clicks, basically at Google and Facebook, the targeting is all just, they're realizing it's nonsense. And we're like, oh, we'll just create better content. Who is going to read that? You need
You
someone
just
willing
keep saying
to buy
you
it.
keep saying read, but it's not.
Who's going to click on the ads? Who's going to, where's
It's
that
not-
money pouring over
hold on.
to?
You have a big misconception here. You're saying it in a way that doesn't anticipate what's already happening. So for myself, like this is not theoretical. This is like actually what's happening. I'm going to record 2 or 3 YouTube videos later this afternoon.
Okay.
And there have been at least 2, if not 3 different distinct AI service tools that have been used in the drafting, formulating, and research portion of those videos. So what would have taken me 10 or 20 hours to do is now taking me 2. That I personally, at
Great.
my level of intelligence and education, am using these tools to get back 15 to 17 hours. So it's not that a boss will say, hey, AI, make a social media post, and then that person who used to make the post loses their job. That's not what we're talking about here. It's that a person enabled by AI can do the job of 8 to 20 people that are not enabled with AI. So the net
why would they
number,
do that?
the net number of jobs, why? Because it's
Because the second you can do that, I can go to the Philippines or I can go to Indonesia,
No.
and in a very short period of time, by copying you, they can do that work, and then
It's
the
not
money
true.
you're charging is now done. Yes, that's
not.
the whole point of automation.
you're
You start off charging, and now you did for $50, they now charge for 5, and then 5 cents.
no. So what it
That's
does
what
is
seamless means.
here's what's going to happen.
Who's going to buy the products that you're pitching if 30% of people are unemployed, Josh?
That's my point. That's the scared part. Like we're talking about maybe UBI at that point. Like that.
UBI
like
is
that.
never going to cover the beginnings of that.
Well, then we're talking about people dying in the streets. Like it's
You're
that's
talking
what,
about people breaking the computers.
I mean, if
Maybe the
30
Luddites will
There are
finally
other
historically
options.
be.
There are other
there are people that die every time unemployment goes up 1%. There's tracking on that.
Yes.
So we go to 30% unemployment, hundreds of thousands of people are going to die. Full stop.
And
That's
so
a
these
fact.
companies are rushing towards greater and greater productivity, and the people like you doing 10, 20x more work without charging 10, 20x more are doing less. You're at a race to the bottom. You can't win.
No, you just keep okay. Right now, for lawyers, I'll use lawyers again because it's something I work on every day. Right?
$400
Don't
divorce lawyer.
Don't interrupt. You interrupt a lot. It's bad podcasting. So you take a lawyer and you go back 20 years. There's a certain amount of people on staff at law firms, usually junior associates, that had to
Right.
go into the law library and do the research. So for a certain amount of cases, you knew you needed a certain amount of associates that would physically be in a law library reading books. Then things like Westlaw, LexisNexis, Bloomberg not only digitized that, but they created natural language search. And we saw this. This actually happened in Big Law. 3 out of 10, 4 out of 10 associate positions disappeared over years. It wasn't a 1 month thing. But if you go back and you look at what the class of 2000 had as available jobs in Big Law, and then you go look at what the class of 2020 had, 30 to 40% of those high quality jobs used to say doctor and lawyer. Oh, I hope my kid becomes a doctor or lawyer. It's not the same. Doctor is a much better job right now for the average doctor versus the average lawyer, for the average young one that's graduating, okay? So what I'm saying when I go back to marketing and videography and content is that when you go look at the lawyer, okay, you see that there's a wide range of performance. So you went to Arkansas, where I went. That's a 3rd-tier law school. You expect the average law student coming out of there to not be good. When you look at Harvard, that is a tier 1 law school. You expect the average lawyer to be good. So for someone hiring a lawyer at random, there's this wide variance of what outcome they would get. They might get a bad lawyer, a lawyer that commits malpractice. They might get a suboptimal outcome or negotiation. What AI does is it takes the Arkansas attorney and the Harvard attorney, and it says, you guys are equal now. If you're both AI assisted, you're equal. So you used to hire an attorney based on how smart they were. And maybe that still makes sense. But what's going to happen is you start to value other things besides research and drafting ability. Now, an attorney's ability to handle a client, to sign cases, to be influential in front of a jury, to be persuasive. So previously you could have an unattractive lawyer with a stutter that was still a fantastic trial lawyer because he was a fantastic trial lawyer, or she, on the basis of what they had drafted and written. But now when everyone has better than Harvard
You're
capable
just describing
research.
automation, man. This is not new. This is hundreds of
But I'm
years.
saying this has happened.
It's not new. It's just faster.
That's the thing.
It's
You're
new
right.
to
You're
you
right.
because you never read, because you had all this stuff. This was discussed for hundreds of years. Every bit of automation does this. None of this is surprising. You're talking about pop music. They used to work hard. They used to have great voices and be great musicians, and now they just have to be pretty, work out, and have a giant social media following.
Yes.
How is that different than what you're describing?
Because before it happened in decades, and now it's happening in days.
That is exactly the problem. But the problem is, I'm making more productive. I'm worried about the people who think that they're being productive, because you're buying yourself not decades, but you're buying yourself maybe a few months. I kept my job. These other 8 people are gone. But the reality is once those begin to hit, when we try to do automation, the first move made it cheap and moved it to India, because of course we know how to do IT automation. And now it's all about chatbots. Every time companies try to do this and lay off those people, 2 things happen. One is nobody wants to work for them anymore because they don't trust it. So 2, they go out and start their own projects, and that's good because you can grow. But the bigger issue is the company itself is no longer competent, which is what we're seeing now. You can't get things done because why would a worker care? They just want to hold on to their job. They don't care about anything else that's occurring, because management has reached a point where it's just about KPIs. We've turned people into computers, and now we're shocked when their jobs can be, quote, automated away. What they don't get is when that automation breaks, the company catastrophically fails, because the executives don't realize it's not about just bumping up the numbers over and over and over again. So I think I agree with you about the automation. The question is, I'm just shocked that people are cheerleading it, and I'm horrified that executives don't know what's coming.
My larger point is that the harmony is what's powerful. Like the presentation I made was called Scared and Excited. It's not just called Scared and Scared, right? Excited is there's unbelievable opportunity for people. And when you have top tier players, people that are top 5% performers, top 10% performers, and they're now AI assisted, you get better stuff in the world. You get the quality of content on YouTube is going to go up, not down.
I wish we had another hour to go in on this topic, because I feel like the economics of it. We don't have another hour, in case you're checking your watch. It's like
I have to go talk to a human and make money.
I know, but so to me, this topic comes back to a lot of economic themes that I'm familiar with from the world of crypto. You were talking about what happens with all the ad fraud. Well, I mean, the economy that emerges is no longer human to human, it's bot to bot. We know what that looks like because I've watched it happen with ChatGPT and AutoGPT, where I've sit there and put this thing on a loop, and it starts talking to a robotic agent in tech support for OpenAI to figure out why the script isn't running. What does that look like in a future where both sides are monetized? Well, my chatbot has a crypto wallet attached, and their chatbot has a crypto wallet attached, because they're not going to do microtransactions with PayPal and Venmo.
Right.
They're going to do 1/1,000,000th of a penny per interaction between 2 chatbots until they find the solution. And that's what that's going to look like. Now, what does that look like for the humans that have to pay for the gridiron these things run on? I don't know. But if these things are paying for their own existence by doing things that are useful to the economy for themselves, and then we just kind of make a little bit of... Everyone's got a phone in their pocket. Everyone has gridiron that can conceivably run an LLM and run independent agents. So everybody can have their own little pet moneymaker in their pocket doing a whole bunch of random stuff if they can think of stuff for it to do. Yeah. So I'm not concerned about the future with 30% unemployment, because people are still going to have money. It's just going to be a different kind of economy. We just have to not let Gensler screw it up for all of us this week, and decide to sue us all out of existence. I hate for that to be the final word on a great topic, but I do want to get to the second topic of the show, which you said was about how managers were dumb before you have to get out of here.
Okay. There's a management theory that goes that basically, you hear people say late stage capitalism, they don't understand what's really occurred. If you think of shareholders and the U.S. economy and the way it works is that everything's supposed to be for stock prices, right? And the theory is that it's not about people at the top. It's not about CEOs running things because they get paid off and they don't matter. They move on. They're like executives and they're like politicians. They'll move on. The deep state is managed. What's the deep state of business? So the theory is that companies actually are now captured by managers and mid-level executives for their own benefit. Because it's not just about the stock prices, it's about them holding on for one more quarter. And so what happened is if you think about what a manager's supposed to be, when we were young, well, actually probably maybe young because it might have been there by the time you were there, a manager's supposed to develop people. They're a leader. A manager today is someone who reports KPIs and pushes them up the chain. So they started leaning all those management ranks out. A manager used to have 2 to 3 people that reported to them. Now it's 10 to 12 on average. That's a huge challenge because what's happening from there is managers don't treat people like managers anymore. They just try, let me get my numbers to you. They're just a shuttle pushing information back and forth. That's a little terrifying as it should be because we're not developing people. There's no reason for you to have managers. You want to know what AI should be? It's taking managers and executives out whose sole job is to push down a directive from above. And the directive is usually something broad-based. So the Columbia way of training stuff is the CEO has the vision, the executive council, the C-suite, and the VPs, they do the strategy. Oh, everybody says strategy now. It's because they don't understand what they're talking about. And then directors and lower, they basically end up doing the tactics. They're supposed to do the things that lead to the strategy that feels the CEO's vision. Instead, what we get now is everybody's focusing on just their part of it with no sense of how it ties into the greater corporation.
Amen.
And from the top, you have executives coming up with things they read in books that they saw, and they're like, do some A/B testing. They have no clue what it is. So you can literally pretend to make things up, and they won't know because they don't know enough about the things that they're asking because they're getting involved in tactics.
So many. I mean, I've said
that is the modern workplace to a lot. That is one of the theories that's the problem with the modern workplace. It's what Musk was alluding to, but he's talking about people who've been studying this for a while.
I mean, I've said the anecdote a couple dozen times. There's somebody that all of us know that was telling me about a year ago at their job that she didn't even know what they were working on for the first 6 months she was there.
That's common.
Because it was just that big of a company. She knew what the company did. She just didn't know what her department did. She was just a project coordinator that was moving check boxes from one side of the screen to the other.
We used to, as headhunters, I used to ask that question, but what do you do? Like, and what was your impact? Right? Okay, you fill out a report and you talk to an agency, but what's the impact? How did that benefit? And people used to know. Now they're like, I finished the report and talked to the agency. They really don't know. They know that they emailed and that was enough. And the problem is when I look at things like remote work and people talking about how is it possible that Musk actually cut that much of the workforce and Twitter didn't catastrophically crash? Partly because it's a tech company. Like you couldn't do that, but we're kind of seeing that even in the restaurant and the hospitality industries. Used to have 30, 40 people. I worked at a retail place once that had 115 people there, and we had 12 managers. We went down to 3, and there was no difference. And so I really wonder, this 4% unemployment and this whole issue that we can't find workers, are people doing anything out there? And would the managers and executives know? Or has it all been cheap money? Everything's done by cheap money.
I mean, great question. I mean, there's...
A little scary.
I don't know. I don't know anybody. I don't know anybody in my realm that's having a hard time finding a job, and that includes a lot of people that, as a category of people, should have a hard time finding a job.
It's like the late '90s. Everybody had a job.
Right. Well, I mean, it's right now. Like, I mean, I just got out of Federal Halfway House. Everybody that wants a job has a job. It's not hard to find a job if you're willing to put in hours and do actual work. It's people that are accustomed to the easy work in middle management or just below middle management that are having a hard time finding a job. And those are the people that are going to probably be automated first. Yeah. Because if their job is so easy, like, look, if I can automate a junior journalist job, I can automate every manager that I've ever had. Because, I mean, you can almost automate it with out-of-the-box project management software. You know, it's just that takes the heavy work out of what being a manager 30 years ago used to be.
Look at property management. Appfolio and Real Pages, which is just up the street here. They do all the work for property management. They do all of it. The person there at the office has no leeway anymore at all.
It's all policy-based administration.
It's clicking on the thing in front of them. It's literally going in the office to get on a Zoom call for them because they can't do, or all they can do is look at the screen and tell you what's occurring. But I mean, that stuff is crazy to me because it's not that property management was good beforehand, but they automated it so much that basically, I don't know how people are getting houses and that kind of stuff. You have to have a $70,000, $80,000 a year job to get a one-bedroom apartment. I'm in the suburbs of Dallas. Now, on the one hand, I go, well, yeah, I've lived 14 to a house, so I'm not that surprised because that's what you do when you live in high-cost areas.
Yeah.
I was also a minute from the beach. There was a reward for doing that,
Right.
you know?
Mark said everyone that wants a job has a job, and I think that's true, but I think that the quality of the jobs and then like the income adjusted, inflation adjusted quality of the jobs has been hit pretty hard across a wide variety of
Very much
sectors.
so. Now it's reaching up to the people making six figures or more. They're all starting to feel it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you know, it's
A lot
it's
of
also, it's also, we're also talking about the other side of the tracks over there too. It doesn't cost that much to live on the south side of town, as much as it does.
Well,
up
it's
on
a
the north
different
side.
kind of cost, though. You can't sleep well.
you
Things
could
get stolen in.
not with that hat.
I'm not sure I wear my Stetson.
The average job is between $17 and $27 an hour on the south side of town. It's all factory work and warehouse work.
Right.
It's Amazon, it's FedEx, it's moving toilets and propane tanks from one shelf to another.
Yeah.
It's hard work.
Important work.
And the average cost of living for like a what would be a $3,000 a month apartment on the north side of town is an $800 a month apartment on the south side of town. And like you said, there is unless staccato blasts in the middle of the
Maybe I
night
should move.
don't keep you awake, yeah, you might have some trouble sleeping.
You could really get a 2-bedroom for $800. What area?
Well, I mean, start with Hutchins and move north until you can't afford it.
I'll look at that. I'm just waiting for the AI to take my job, and I got to
There
downsize.
you go.
We'll be taken last because we'll be AI assisted.
There you go.
When are you going to start replacing us with the bots?
Already sampling your voices and writing. So
This isn't even my real voice.
this is why it's very important you don't interrupt each other so we get clean samples.
I stay 3 steps ahead of everyone at all times.
That's why I've been rocking back in a chair just to mess you up a little bit.
Right.
So it's bad sounds.
Yeah.
It's working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Audio engineer.
We're hitting your
interval
drop
here.
dead time. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this week's roundtable. I've enjoyed the discussion as usual.
It's a pleasure to meet you.
Went a lot better than a Monopoly game, so I'm proud that we kept it under control.
Still hurts. Still don't like your son.
We'll be back. We'll be back next week with more of this. So join us for that. Hey, thanks for watching The Merge. We've got a ton more stuff for you to watch on YouTube, on Instagram, on TikTok, everywhere. Check us out.